What? First, what's free?
First one's free.
Which one?
Greg doesn't know anything about drugs.
No. Have you tried DMT? I really want to.
She's not gonna kill me. You would know the difference. They run.
I'm gonna go try and get in the middle. Oh, you're a godsend. You're gonna have to get stills because all I'm gonna have is video.
So forever to say no.
Do you want to try and get over there?
Me and you or just me?
Yeah, both of them. Everybody. Okay. Okay. Yeah, it is. Think. What? If you do, you get to hold this.
You'd have to take my run against Stevens.
That's easy.
Trade me.
Yeah. No, just play with it. Just
Okay.
one
That's it here?
Awesome.
How's it
Nice
going?
shirt, man.
Thanks.
Yeah, just a small percentage. You just said.
Let's go, Aaron! Woo!
Hey everybody, thanks for coming out in the heat to see Joe. My name is Aaron Adams and I'm the Region 7 Alternative Libertarian National Committee. Region 7 is Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, and it's my job to go to these national committee meetings and try to represent all of our states, make sure that we maintain our ballot access, that we can vote and register as libertarians, and continue to see our parties grow. As such, I am a lifetime member of the Libertarian Party. To become a lifetime member of the Libertarian Party, there's a certain financial requirement. You can spread it out over 12 months. You can do it all at once. It's $1,500, but then you never have to pay dues again, which is a really good thing. You don't have to worry about lapsing. Your membership stays maintained. How many of you are members of the National Libertarian Party? There's a whole lot of you that aren't. How many of you are members of the state party? Who's an Oklahoma Libertarian Party? So I see a whole lot of discrepancy. I see a lot more state party members than I see national party members. Let me tell you why joining the national party is important. It's important so that we can continue to fight for ballot access, so that we can continue to support candidates, so that libertarian voices are heard. But it's also really important to us in Oklahoma because our delegate counts. How many delegates we get to send to the national convention to vote on platforms and bylaws and those inter-party offices, the things that are important. That's based on that national party membership. That's a huge part of the formula. Is there anyone here who's not a Libertarian Party member, a National Party member, who would like to become one today? We can send somebody around with forms. If you're not joining as a lifetime member, it's not $1,500, guys. It's $25. So who's got $25? Who wants to become a National Party member today? As a National Party member, you get all kinds of cool features. You're going to get the Liberty Pledge newsletter. You get all kinds of neat emails. You're going to find out when events like this are happening. You're going to find out what candidates are running for office in your areas. And you're going to find great opportunities to volunteer and get more involved with the party and with the movement. And we'll put you in touch with everybody in your state. It makes it a really easy one-stop thing. Anybody else?
Woo! Let's go!
Here's one. Man, I heard in Allen, Texas, they had like 50 people that wanted to join the party. It's a shame Texas is going to beat Oklahoma in football and membership. Who's in?
Let's go!
Anybody else? Because I'm going to, here we go. Here's another one. If you keep your hands up, ladies and gentlemen, until somebody gets to you. We're going to start our programming here in just a minute. A couple of quick things. Due to COVID and social distancing, we're not going to be doing selfies with the candidate. We're not going to do that. After the rally, if you want to come up and have your photos taken with the bus, we can absolutely do that. If you want to have a friend kind of take your picture from your table with Joe in the background as the ultimate photo bomb while she's speaking, please feel free to do that. But we are not going to do selfies. And nobody gets on the bus except the crew. It's really important that we keep our candidate and our crew safe, right? And healthy so that they can continue to tour and speak to people and talk over to them. So that's why we're going to do it. There is a great program for you tonight. You've got an amazing MC and fabulous speakers. There's water available at the tables after the rally. You'll be able to get yard signs and bumper stickers at those tables up front. Sign up to get involved in the campaign on the state level and in other campaigns on the state level. We've got some amazing down ballot candidates. You're going to hear from at least one of them tonight. If you marinate on it and decide that you want to join the party, and you decide tomorrow, you can join the National Party by going to www.lp.org. And you can join the state party by going to oklp.org. Super, super simple. Yeah? Ladies and gentlemen, your MC for tonight is Miss Victoria Whitfield.
Thank you all so very much. I am so thrilled to see all of you out here tonight. Thank you all so much for coming. And applause to all of you because none of this would work without all of you.
Woo!
So I assume that everybody out here is because they're, kind of a fan of liberty, right?
Woo!
And I know everybody's out here to support Joe because because Joe is phenomenal, right? And I know we're all very excited to hear from her. But before we do, I would like to introduce you to one of our Libertarian candidates for U.S. House Senate, District 17. He is somebody that you should be behind and supporting in your community because he is here to support and represent you and your liberties. Mr. Greg Sadler.
Thank you. Like she mentioned there, my name is Greg Sadler. I'm actually running for District 17 State Senate. It's a kind of an odd-shaped district. It's just east of here, eastern Oklahoma County, as well as almost all of Potawatomi County. It's a two-person race. It's going to be between myself and the winner of the Republican runoff later at the end of the month. With no Democrat running, this is a great opportunity for myself as well as the Libertarian Party. Thank you. This is my first time running for office, but I've been a long-time Libertarian. Actually, in '96 is when I first voted for Harry Brown for president and Joe for vice president. Obviously, I was excited when I got to see her push for her candidacy here in 2020. As I talk to the people in my district, I speak with a lot of Republicans, a lot of Democrats, a lot of folks that aren't necessarily ecstatic about their presidential candidate. A lot of them are just kind of voting for the lesser of two evils. So in Joe, we have somebody that is an awesome candidate that we can be proud to support. We're voting for someone. We're not voting against anyone. I found that people want change, and I don't think that we can expect change if the two old parties continue their stranglehold on the presidency the way they are. They're the ones that got this country into the mess that it is. To think that they can get us out, I'm not buying that. Joe's slogan is real change for real people. And I kind of thought it doesn't get any more real than the folks of Oklahoma. We just want to work hard, live our lives the way we want to live them, and keep the government out of it. The two old parties, they want to keep the government continuing growing, continuing their intrusion on our lives, and Joe just wants to give power back to us, the people, so we can live our lives the way that we see fit. I'm voting for Joe because I love freedom. That's period. That's it. I love freedom. End of story. The other parties seem like they've kind of forgot about freedom. They don't care. They have other interests in mind other than the freedom of the people. So please join me in voting for Joe in November and welcoming her to Oklahoma today. One last thing I wanted to mention here, other than I want to plug my own website, sadlerforoksenate.com. You can check me out. You can make a donation, as well as obviously please check out joe20.com and donate there as well. And if you can, please tell a relative, tell a neighbor, tell anyone you know about Joe, because unfortunately she's not getting the media coverage that she deserves. So word of mouth is super critical at a time like this. So once again, I want to say thanks for everybody having me on here today. Thank you.
Thank you. One more round of applause for Mr. Sadler, please. It takes people like Mr. Sadler and people like you to make a difference in your community. It takes volunteers to make this happen. We all know what an excellent candidate we have in Joe. And everybody else would too. They just need to hear her name. And obviously we're gonna fight media, but we need name recognition. And to do that, I need each and every one of you to help. I need you to go sign up to volunteer in Oklahoma, even if you're just going to stand at precincts on election day so that we can represent. How many of you are willing to put up a sign and help volunteer for Joe in Oklahoma? If you raise your hand and you have not signed up to volunteer, would you please, before you leave, see your way over to one of those canopies and sign up to volunteer? We have wonderful volunteers over there waiting to take your information. We would love to have your help. On that note, I would like to introduce you to one of our community leaders, community members in the libertarian community and the liberty community here in Oklahoma. He is a former gubernatorial candidate, Mr. Rex Lawler.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Yeah, there's some energy going on out here tonight. Yeah, I ran for governor, but that's not the most important thing I do. That's not the most important thing I did. I just had to drive around the state and talk to a bunch of people for a few months. The man who did the real work on the campaign is Chris Powell. He's standing right back here in the back. He was our candidate for Representative in 2018. He was the first gubernatorial candidate to win a contested primary in the state of Oklahoma history for the Libertarian Party. Somewhere out here in the crowd is also the woman who was the first chair of the Reformed Libertarian Party, Tina Kelly. Will you raise your hand for me, please? Right, she's back there in the back on the front. She was proposing 6 years ago and put forth the effort to get the Libertarian Party back on the ballot. As I look around this crowd, I see Todd Agopian, who is running for corporate commissioner. Woo! He's going to be the person that continues our ballot access in 2024. We have Chris Powell, once again, who not only was our gubernatorial candidate, he is also the vice mayor of Bethany, Oklahoma. He immediately turned around and ran another campaign to get elected to city council, and then immediately got promoted to vice mayor. As I look around this crowd, I see a half a dozen other people that ran for office. I know that we have 3 other elected libertarians here in the state of Oklahoma. All of those took place in the last 2 years. And it's all of us are individuals. They're people like you, they're people like me, who just walk out there on the street, talk to people, put forth their ideas, and understand how the government affects our day-to-day lives and are able to articulate that to everybody else. Because let's face it, humans are sheep, right? They are swallowed up by everything that they are fed by the media, that they are fed by their government schools, that they are fed by the propaganda machines that are the old parties. That's something that we are trying to break. We have got to break the 2-party cycle. If we don't do that, we are going to be continuing on this same perpetual up and down, back and forth swing between the Democrats and Republicans, fighting over which of our rights they're going to take next. There are a lot of people in this crowd that I know that are from the Libertarian Party, that are registered libertarians and have been here for a long time. There are also a lot of faces that I have never seen before. How many people here are not registered as libertarians? No shame. Look at this. Look at this. You see this? They are already breaking the cycle because they're here listening to our options, Dr. Jorgensen. And that's what needs to happen. Each and every one of us needs to take the message you get here from her tonight, and you need to take it home to your family. You need to take it home to your friends. You need to take it home to your coworkers. You need to take it out to your neighbors. You have to let everybody know they have a third option here in Oklahoma. A lot of people spend a lot of time and a lot of energy making sure that you have that option, and we're going to have it going forward. There's no question about that. Todd's going to get it hands down to 2024. Joe is going to win it hands down to 2024. What we need to make sure is that Joe makes that impact on the national stage, and she does that by winning electoral votes. So don't worry about what they're doing in New Jersey. Don't worry about what's happening in California or New York. Worry about what's happening in your neighborhood. Worry about what's happening right here in Oklahoma City, because all politics are local and all changes begin from the grassroots. And I want to further point out that not everyone is here just because Joe Jorgensen is the libertarian with the third option. Some people are looking for their individual issues to change. Some people, I know that there are many of the advocates from State Question 788 that are here tonight. Yeah, let me hear it. The 57% represent. You know, there were no bigger advocates. I mean, I've got to give Connie credit. She's been an advocate for this for decades. But if you're going across the nation, nobody's been bigger advocates for making sure that you have your medicinal and your recreational rights than the Libertarian Party.
Right.
If you are single issue for personal choice or health choice, the Libertarian Party is your natural home. That's what we stand for. There are a lot of people here that are in support that I know are strong advocates of the Second Amendment. A lot of you guys know when I ran for office, I was open carrying before it was legal without a concealed carry license. I did it without hiding it from a single person. I announced it live on camera at a Tulsa meeting of the Oklahoma Second Amendment Association. Don Spencer in attendance. He offered, if I ran into any legal problems for it, he would give me help. And he would have. There's no question about that. But my point is, it doesn't matter what side of the spectrum you come from, we've all got our issues. We've all got our keynote issues. We've all got the things that resonate most for us. And I'm here to tell you, I don't care what that issue is, there isn't one that Joe Jorgensen isn't going to be the one that represents your interests. And here's why. Libertarians don't believe in intruding on your private choices. It doesn't matter what you personally believe. If you want to sit in your house, smoke weed, strapped with your AK-47 fully automatic, so you can guard your weed field that you've got growing in your backyard, that's your business. You bought that property, and I'm going to steal something from Joe Exotic. Everybody remembers the Tiger King, right? He was pretty crazy. But there's one thing that he said that always resonated with me, that stuck with me, that was important. He said, "You never own anything." And that was a big, important deal to him, because he's right. You don't own your land. That's on deed to you by the government. You don't own your property. If at any time the government says that becomes illegal, you no longer have permission to own your own property. You don't have the right to your own health care. That has to be done by actuaries as regulated by the Federal Food and Drug Administration. You don't have the right to grow whatever plants you want to grow in your garden, whether they're legal plants or not, unless you have permission from the USDA and, in certain cases, export licenses for them. You don't have the right to own your pets. You don't have the right to breathe the air you want to breathe. And that is something that we need to tear down. These are all just the micro ways that they have used to tear down your personal liberty and personal freedom and get you used to the idea that you don't actually have freedom. They're going to tell you you do, but you don't. The Libertarian Party wants that to change. And I am going to cut it off right here and let you know that I am super excited to see every single one of you out here tonight. I want you to go home. I want you to take the message that you get. I want you to carry it forth, and I want you to remember you were born free. We're hoping you die free too.
You know it's coming. One more round of applause for Mr. Lawhorn. Each and every one of you that raised your hand and admitted to not being a registered libertarian, I'm going to challenge you to go ahead and change your registration. We have the registration forms back here at the tent. Each one of you have been challenged. With that said, how many of you here are ready to hear from Joe? Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you again for your support this evening. And please give another round of applause for Mr. Lawhorn, Mr. Sadler, and all of our volunteers. Without any further ado, we know you are all here with her, and she is with us. Your next President of the United States, Dr. Joe Jorgensen.
That's great. That's awesome. So the native peoples. From the time the first European settlers arrived in the current United States, they guaranteed their words of policy and peace and coexistence. But their actions spoke much louder. Of course, this is no better exemplified anywhere than here in Oklahoma, where millions of Native Americans were forcibly transported as a result of the Trail of Tears. Again, the government promised to honor the treaties they had signed and the tribal governments which were put in place. But yet again, these promises were broken over and over again. I believe that the dream and the promises of America should not be a nightmare for the Native peoples. Fortunately, earlier this year, the Supreme Court correctly ruled that much of the eastern portion of Oklahoma is to be governed by the tribes who have settled there. It is my hope that this one very tiny positive step is a first toward getting the federal government out of the way and allowing Native Americans the right to life, liberty, and property, which were denied to their ancestors. And speaking of ancestors, my grandmother immigrated into this country, and it was from her that I learned the values of America. It's from her that I got the love of my country. She said in the old country, it didn't matter how hard you worked, you could work and work and work, and the government would just take the extra money away so that everybody had the same. But here in America, you could work extra and you could keep it. And listening to her, it might sound like she came from the Soviet Union or an Eastern Bloc country. Actually, she was from Denmark. It was my grandmother's vision of liberty and the basic principles of the Libertarian Party that bring me here today. I've been crisscrossing America, and what I've been hearing from people is that our system isn't working. We need change, and that's why I'm asking you to vote for me for President of the United States. I will get government out of the way so my grandmother's vision of the American dream can be a reality for us all. Our current government is too big, too bossy, too nosy, too intrusive. We need to put decision-making power back into your hands because you can spend your money better than any special interest, lobbyist, or bureaucrat in Washington can. One of the biggest factors that has led to a quadrupling of our prison population since 1980 is the racist and destructive war on drugs. All we have to do is take a step back to prohibition to see the parallels. Despite realizing how poorly alcohol prohibition went, we have replaced it with a carbon copy. Drug kingpins have replaced mob bosses, and drug dens have replaced speakeasies. When was the last time you ever heard of a liquor store owner going up and down the halls of a high school trying to push gin on high school students? Or when's the last time you heard of a vodka addict breaking into homes to pay for a vodka habit? And when was the last time you heard of two liquor store owners having a shootout to see who gets the best corner? What we have now is not a drug problem. What we have is a prohibition problem. There is no law preventing you from owning any object, whether it's a gun to protect yourself or a drug for whatever reason you wish. If there is no victim, there is no crime. I will pardon anyone convicted at the federal level of a victimless crime and allow the medical community to deal with substance abuse issues in a way that salvages lives instead of throwing them away. In addition to the overcrowding that we have in our federal prisons, the war on drugs has negatively affected our communities and the interactions that many people have with the police. Drug gangs have been created and empowered by the fact that they operate in an underground market. Therefore, they police themselves, and too often violence is the result. Consequently, the federal government has created a police state, including the DEA, which receives over $3 billion of our tax dollars annually. They have repeatedly raided medical marijuana clinics in states where medical marijuana is completely legal. As your president, I will defund federal involvement in policing, including the DEA, which instead of protecting, brings nameless SWAT teams. I will end the supply of surplus military equipment like tanks and tear gas. To the over 8,000 federal, state, and local police forces, which has made many Americans feel like combatants in their own neighborhoods. As your president, I will end no-knock raids, which too often they usually killed innocent bystanders like Breonna Taylor instead of the supposed victims that they're going after. And I will end qualified immunity. So that good citizens can take legal action against police brutality when it becomes necessary. While millions of Americans have suffered from government's war on drugs, almost every American has suffered from the COVID-19 pandemic in some way. South Korea confirmed its first case within a day of ours, and yet they were quickly able to suppress the spread by testing everyone. They nearly eradicated COVID-19, and they did so without any lockdowns. One reason, the FDA stopped a testing initiative supported by Bill Gates from further testing, and they said they needed, quote unquote, further assessment. This is just one example of how the FDA has worsened the COVID-19. Currently, only those companies with enough money to get approval even get approval for their drugs, and once they do, they weaponize their patents and hold a monopoly. It costs about $1 billion to bring a new drug to market, and a lot of that is thanks to the FDA, along with a 10-year holdup. Meanwhile, it's patients who suffer, desperately waiting for drugs that just might save their lives. When I am your president, I will get rid of the efficacy requirement of the FDA, if not the FDA entirely. We want new medications and procedures to get to patients as quickly and safely as possible. The FDA is not the only problem with our healthcare system. Let's be honest, it's not working for anyone. My heart breaks for the millions of Americans who have been left behind, those who have been bankrupted. Now, for decades, we've heard of politicians in Washington claiming that it's the fault of our free market system. Therefore, we need single payer. Well, I've got news for the people in Washington. We haven't had anything close to a free market system in nearly a century.
That's right.
When I hear politicians say we need Medicare for all, what I hear is VA hospital for all. We cannot wait for the government bureaucrats to decide who lives and who dies. We must put control back in the hands of people, back in the hands of the patient. As I see it, the biggest problem with our healthcare system is that our insurance isn't really insurance at all. With true insurance, what happens is they only pay for unexpected costs, thereby keeping costs down generally. Imagine if our car insurance, for instance, pay for gas, oil, and car washes. You would have absolutely no incentive to drive around looking for the lowest gas price, because you would simply get out your little $5 copay and pay whatever the price was. And the gas stations certainly wouldn't have the need to compete with each other because they would simply pass along the higher price to the insurance companies. In fact, gas stations could raise their prices and you would never even know it. That is the problem that we have with our healthcare system. What we have right now is there is absolutely no incentive to look around for better prices, and as a result, healthcare providers have no reason to compete with each other. They can charge higher prices without any accountability, and we're the ones left footing the bill. The best system of free market that we can learn from is Singapore. They pay about a third of the cost per person as we do, and they have money left over. Our VA healthcare system should be converted to one that's similar to Singapore, also similar to the state of Indiana, in which they have control of their healthcare dollars. It's time for veterans to have control over when, where, and how they get their medical care. Industry that lets our soldiers down. It's our national military. In the time since the war on terror began, in which some of our soldiers weren't even born yet, over 150,000 people have died in Afghanistan, including 40,000 civilians. In Iraq, 300,000 people, including 200,000 civilians. In Pakistan, 23,000 civilians were killed out of 65,000 people total. The United States spends more on military each year than the next 7 countries combined. And they're in over 100, almost 150 countries around the world. Our government has increasingly engaged in drone warfare, even striking weddings and hospitals. In every election, candidates promise peace, but they only deliver more war. If I'm elected president, my first official act will be to bring the troops home. Switzerland, armed and neutral. Our military must be trained to defend our shores, but we have to stop meddling in the world and make peace with our world neighbors. The IRS taxes Americans at every turn, and the tax system is so complicated that only those who can afford personal accountants and tax lawyers can even navigate the code. That same IRS that taxes us to death investigates nearly every part of our financial personal lives to decide how much we should pay. Meanwhile, the government itself accumulates more debt. Now, to listen to people in Washington, half of them want to increase military spending, while the other half want to increase domestic spending. So what's our compromise? A bipartisan compromise by increasing both. As your president, my veto pen is going to need extra ink. Spending is also made possible by the Federal Reserve. When the federal government isn't able to raise taxes, it simply prints more money. Without any backing, the value of our dollars has lessened every year. Since the Fed was created over a century ago, the American dollar has lost 96% of its value. As your president, I will first audit and then end the Federal Reserve. I will also eliminate the IRS and work with Congress towards eliminating the federal income tax altogether. And speaking of money, I will reduce regulations to allow cryptocurrency and any other form of currency. It's time to move money out of the government sector and back to the people who earned it. Politicians and bureaucrats don't know what you need, you do. When it comes to cutting spending, we cannot take any solutions off the table. I would encourage baselining budgeting. So rather than just assuming an increase every year, we start at zero and then decide what's vital. It's time for the federal government to balance its checkbook the way American families do. Government has so often failed those most in need. They make them think that that same government must be the only one who can answer their calls for help. But I believe we can make these changes because I believe in you. I believe in the individuals who make up our great country. I see America through my grandmother's eyes, a place where the rights of the individual are greater than the power of the government. A place where liberty means maximum freedom and minimum government. A place where the American dream isn't a dream at all. It's real and it's right there in front of you because you made it happen. Thank you very much. If you'd like a question, come on up to the front here so I can hear you, although I can probably hear you close enough.
Right in the center. If you need questions, Q&A, we line up right here at the center. Please make your questions brief so we have plenty of time for everyone.
Sure, you can go first.
Hi, I'd just like to say, low-key, you're my hero. So thank you for spreading that.
Well, since that's the basis of our country, they should. However, in fact, people have asked me who I would appoint to the Supreme Court, and my answer is anyone who's read the Constitution, first of all, because apparently the ones there haven't read it. Does that answer your question? Hey. Oh, thanks for having me.
Posted on the internet so we know how much things are and how the services rendered. And number two, you mentioned bringing back troops home from outposts around the world. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that one?
Sure, I can answer both questions in about 20 minutes. So bringing the troops home. As I mentioned, we're stationed in almost 150 different countries. If we were to bring the troops home, we would be defending our country. And there are two reasons why I don't want to be everywhere in the world. The first one has to do with taxes. Why should taxpayers in Alabama or Wyoming or Oklahoma send their tax dollars to France and Germany and pay for their defense? And what really irks me is we keep hearing, I read this on the internet, that isn't France great? They get five weeks of vacation. We should get 5 weeks of vacation. Well, maybe we could if we weren't paying for their defense. Maybe
right.
Let that work an extra week and pay for their own defense. Now, if it were simply the money, that would be bad enough, but it's even worse than that. We saw with 9/11 that being around the world just makes things worse. And there's nothing to justify flying airplanes into buildings. But we made it easier for bin Laden to recruit his people by being over there and saying, look, they promised they'd leave, they're still here. Here's the date, they're still here. They're trying to take over a religion, they're trying to take over a law. So if we stay home, it doesn't prevent crazy people from flying planes into buildings, but let's not make it any easier on them. Now, as far as healthcare, I'm going to take it one step further and say that by putting medical dollars into the hands of people, they will demand to see prices, because if they don't, they won't go there. So I wouldn't make it a law that people have to post prices, because in a free market, you don't have to. What we've seen in the two most free market specialties is, which is LASIK surgery and cosmetic surgery. we've seen prices go down, and we've seen quality go up. And yes, I didn't have, about 15 years ago, we didn't have insurance for a while, and I needed an MRI. And I called around, I couldn't get any prices. But guess what? LASIK surgery you can, because they know that you have to pay it, not the insurance companies. So if we have people in charge of their own dollars, people will gladly post the prices without a law.
I have a tough question of libertarians and wanting very little police, no government. How do we go about handling the terrible problem of human trafficking and child pornography?
Yeah, as I've said, all crime is a local issue, whether it's assault, robbery, or child molestation. That happens somewhere, and it's up to the local jurisdiction. And every time we see the federal government get involved in local issues, such as, what have they done? They've supplied tanks and tear gas to local police communities. The local communities on the cop cars, it used to say to protect and serve, and that's the way they acted. Now they're acting more like soldiers because of what the federal government has done by giving them tanks. You look at education. Before, people could tailor their own education to their area without the federal government. The federal government gets involved, and again, they mess it up. So I would say that anywhere you have the federal government where it doesn't belong, it's just going to make things worse. And I can understand why they wanted the FBI decades ago for communication, but now with the internet, we've seen so many police departments work well together already with it, that I try to keep the federal government out wherever I can.
What about the federal government?
Yeah. And by the way, I was scratched and not bitten. And for those of you who don't know, a bat is the only animal that if it touches you, you can get rabies. Whereas the other animals have to touch you, so that's the only reason I went, okay? Just for the record.
I was going to ask you two things. One, how do you plan to address the spread of red flag laws involving gun rights in this country? Additionally, how would you address bringing down the organic spy programs that we have in this country now, where we can't do anything without being reported? Everything that we do is on put on the list. We have nothing as far as programs.
Yeah, you know what's scary is I think the spy programs would be easier to handle than all of the states with their gun laws, because the spy programs, clearly my platform is to get rid of the CIA, get rid of the NSA, get rid of Homeland Security, get rid of all of those people who are doing more spying on us than on enemy combatants. So that's the easy part to get rid of. As far as gun laws, wherever possible, I would get rid of executive orders which put laws in place to restrict us. So that's the easy, and I realize some libertarians don't think that we should use executive orders. I don't see anything wrong with using executive orders to get rid of unconstitutional things. But of course, before leaving office, I would get rid of all executive orders because they're too strong of a tool to be left around to be used for evil, not good. But yes, the way I look at it, the way I look at it is the federal government should not get involved, as I mentioned, with policing, unless it gets to a point such as, for instance, the state of Alabama with Governor Wallace standing on the steps, preventing blacks from entering the university. And I see gun ownership as the same thing. It is a constitutional right. By the way, it shouldn't matter, but just to let you know, I am a gun owner. I would get rid of every gun law in the last 100 years. And real quick, the red flag laws are especially egregious because you're taking away the constitutional right without a fair trial. But I would like to add, just as a plug for libertarians in general, the great thing about our party is even those people who are uncomfortable around guns or don't like the idea of guns around, they still fight for the gun owners' rights to have their guns. So it's not just a pet project with the Libertarian Party. no, I mean, as I said, any other currency, and I would leave it up to the free market. You know, we used to hear stories about how people who were a little poor would bring chickens to pay for their doctor bills. If people want to accept chickens as currency, that's their right. So, we also want it as a free market.
One part of the group that most people do like is the postal service. It's full of hard workers and dedicated to the country. In 2006, it was become a mandate that's really getting postal service as a service. Have you given any thought on how you would straighten up postal service and what we do for it?
Yes, in fact, this is an issue that I was presented with in the 1990s. And like everything else, I would open it up to the free market. And I had a lot of, again, keep in mind 1990s, before email became popular, I would have radio callers who would call in and say, well, I don't want other people delivering the mail because I'm afraid that one mailman might steal another mailman's letters that they just delivered. And so I would ask them, well, have you ever had anything delivered by UPS? Oh yeah, sure, all the time. Were you ever afraid of the FedEx guy stealing your UPS package? Well, no. Okay, it would be no different. So I would suggest we get necessity is a mother invention, and I would open it up across the board and see technology take over. Woo! Woo! Hey.
Thank you for coming to Oklahoma. It is greatly appreciated from all of us here that these better options.
Yeah, and by the way, since you gave me such a great welcome, for those of you who didn't know or weren't there, maybe a few of you are here, I came to Tulsa, Oklahoma, when? A couple months, yeah, I can't remember when, if it's Tuesday, it must be Belgium kind of thing. But we told them 24 hours ahead of time that I would be there, and within 24 hours, they had the restaurant to capacity with a waiting line of like 30 people outside the door in 90-degree heat. So we'll come back to Oklahoma. I don't want to make promises, but this is one of the, there aren't many states I've been to twice, but after that welcome from Oklahoma, of course we had to come back. So thank you. Oh, so you were at the restaurant.
I was trying to be there. Couldn't make it. So we made it today. So you mentioned a lot of kind of corrupt entities that are involved with the government, the Federal Reserve, the IRS, these things. So one that is really high on a lot of mothers' agendas is CPS, DHS. There's a lot of issues there with kids being taken from mothers just while they're going through wellness checks and having to fight to even get their kids back. Where is your stance on that, and how are you going to help break up that monopoly of essentially kids being kidnapped through the government itself?
Yeah, and that's something that we're looking into, because you mentioned kids being taken away from their fathers. Also, what we're hearing and what we've heard on the trail, and we do listen. We'll go back to the team and talk about it. We've also heard from fathers who, victims of law, victims of family law. That's it. Victims of family law who have basically made the same complaints. And so we're looking into that now. Now, a lot of this is a state issue. However, if you follow the trail far enough, you can usually find a federal government involved somewhere. So we will follow the trail until we find something. So I don't have an answer for you yet, but we have been hearing that, and that's what we're looking into. Yeah, and that's one of the things that got me the nomination over a couple of the other people who are running for the nomination, which is that I look at it as the people who are of retirement age had that money forcibly taken. It was taken out of their paychecks before they even got their paychecks. And unlike what Al Gore said, there was no lockbox with their money sitting around, and instead their money went to pay for government things that we shouldn't have spent money on to begin with. So what I would do is I would sell a lot of these assets that were bought with their government because they like their money, because they're the rightful owners. And we're actually talking with Cato right now. They've got something called the 6.2% solution, and we're doing the numbers now. But what we're talking about selling is downtown prime real estate, water rights, mineral rights, and those kinds of things. Sell those, which would be much better cared for under the private industry anyway, and then take that money and give it to the rightful owners, which would be the seniors who paid into it for all those years. What do they use as cards? Yes. Well, my plan is to decriminalize all drugs completely across the board. And this is another question I was asked in the 90s. Well, how many drugs exactly would you legalize? Just marijuana or? And I said, well, it depends on how much crime you want to get rid of. If you want to get rid of a little bit of crime, just marijuana. A lot of crime, let's do heroin, cocaine, and everything else. And the tragedy here with psilocybin and some of the other psychedelics is limited research is showing that they can really help with depression. And they can't even do testing because of how it's classified. So once again, the government is getting between patients and their doctors as well as religion. So by infrastructure, you're talking like roads?
I'm talking roads, schools,
Okay.
healthcare, electricity,
Yeah.
anything that can help better America.
Yeah, my goal is to get government out of people's lives, especially the federal government. And regarding roads, I look back to, does anybody remember the name Elizabeth Dole? Yes. So in the 1990s, she was Highway Transportation Secretary, working with the roads. And basically what she did was, and for those of you who are too young to know, there used to be different drinking ages in different states, 18, 20, 21, depending on which state. And then this goal was to get as transportation secretary, and then dangled it in front of the states and said, hey, you want your highway money back? If so, you're going to have to raise your drinking age. Now, you may argue that 21 is a better drinking age, that's fine. But my question is, should the federal government be involved in that? And if you give the federal government the power to fix the roads, you're giving the federal government the power to also take the money and make you pass laws that you don't want in order to get the money back. So I would leave that to the states and get the federal government out of it and let them work for you.
Okay, the last question for Dr. Jorgensen.
Thank you.
So my question for you is, with all the cutting down regulation, how can you ensure that jobs will still be there for Americans?
Well, that's the problem. You can't, which is why we should have never shut down. And here's what's ironic is my other grandfather from the other side of my family came from Sweden, and their family came here again looking for liberty and freedom. And I don't know if you heard, but Sweden never shut down. Their schools, shopping, restaurants, they all stayed open during the pandemic. So it's rather ironic that my family moves from Sweden to come here looking for freedom, and yet we've got less freedom. We're under house arrest while they're all out shopping and going to school. So what President Trump should have done is, first of all, gotten rid of the FDA efficacy requirements so we can get testing kits out. The second thing, he stood on that stage with Dr. Fauci and said, you only need to get tested if you have symptoms. Well, we knew at the time that people had symptoms, people had the virus without the symptoms. And so instead of having government involved like that, we leave it up to the people. And I was glad to see that somebody like Walmart, let me back up. A lot of people think if the federal government doesn't do it, it won't get done. And so they said, well, we have to have mask laws or nobody will wear them. And Walmart proved them liars by having a policy in which if you want to shop at Walmart, you need masks. And other businesses, I believe they should be free to not have masks, and then each of us gets to choose. Like Milton Friedman said, we should be able to vote with our feet, vote with our dollars, and vote for what we want as opposed to a one-size-fits-all. So now that we are in this situation, the most we can do now, a lot of the damage unfortunately is done in tens of millions of jobs. What we can do is we can cut the income tax, get rid of it eventually altogether, and then by leaving money in the hands of individuals and companies instead of the government, research has shown that you get about twice as many jobs. So if we let people decide where to spend the money, such as mom and pop stores instead of big corporations, we'll see more jobs and more prosperity, and just keep it out of the hands of the government.
Okay, folks, wait, don't leave. Stay for just a minute. I need to talk to you. It's really important. How cool is it that Dr. Jorgensen is here with us tonight? You guys excited? So here is the ugly reality. Bus tours cost money. Campaigns cost money. So who can guess what I'm here to do right now? I'm here to shake you down, right? So I want to give you a little information so that you're better armed. This young lady right here is Kate Prather. Kate is the secretary. Prather. Treasurer. Kate is the treasurer for the Libertarian Party of Texas. Texas held 2 events yesterday. At those 2 events, Texas raised $3,500, and Texas has thrown down the gauntlet. They're challenging us to raise more. You know, they think everything south of the Red River is better. They think everything's bigger and better in Texas, and we know better, right? Right. So let's show them, Oklahoma. Who has got a donation for this campaign? Cash donations can go into the bucket, and we have donation forms for anybody who wants to use check, credit card. Here's another cool thing. You can go to www.joe20.com, hit the donate button, and donate daily, weekly, monthly. When you get your next stimulus check, who's got some money to help us fund a campaign? Who needs a donation form? Donation forms are available at the tents. You can see people at the tents if you want to donate today with credit card, check, Bitcoin. We're libertarians, we take crypto. Anybody else? We can't let Texas beat us, guys. Come on. Even though we all know when it comes to football season, we're going to return that favor, right? Thank you, everybody. Listen, there's a pub across the street. They're serving alcohol. They have food. Great place to get a drink, catch your breath, recover.
Like that shirt.
Thanks. I love the
Commune
news.
with other libertarians.
Got a report, right?
Yeah.